Hi, Gwen.
Hi, Harry.
I'm joined today by Gwenn Prinbeck. Gwen is a clinical social worker and a certified life coach. Her licenses include LCSW, PCC, and she earned her Master of Social Services at Bryn Mawr College's Graduate School of Social Work and Social Research. Gwen is also the board treasurer of the PAGPS, the Philadelphia Area Group Psychotherapy Society. Thank you so much for joining me today, Gwen.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to have this conversation with you.
So, Gwen, what got you involved with the PAGPS?
So Tom Herster invited me to get involved in PAGPS when I was a student in the Bryn Mawr social work program. And at that time, I was in his group treatment course and enjoying that a lot. And I had let Tom know early on in my social work training that I was really interested in groups. So I came in with a lot of enthusiasm. And at that time, I was personally studying group constellations through the lens of family constellations or systemic constellations. So this was something that I had done personally, and then I had started to do a year-long training in and had taken like a deep dive in family constellations. Are you familiar with family constellations at all?
No, I'm not. But this sounds really interesting.
It has some overlap with psychodrama, which I think more people in this area are familiar with. It's a group modality that uses representatives from the group to represent usually people, but not always people. It can be things in people's lives. It's a healing modality. It helps people get unstuck, and it does bring in sort of an ancestral lens, family that we all are positioned not only within our family of origin systems or our current family systems, but also within ancestral context. So that's what I was really interested in when I started to think about group therapy with Tom. And I think my enthusiasm had him invite me to learn more about the Philadelphia Area Group Psychotherapy Society. And, I quickly got involved and started with being involved in membership and have played some different roles. And as you mentioned, am currently in the role of treasurer.
I actually have a very similar story about becoming a student board member now. I just took his class. I was very enthusiastic. And Tom was like, hey, so do you want to check out the PAGPS? Do you want to be a student board member? And I was like, yes. He's good at finding people, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And he's got great taste, I think. Great taste.
Yeah.
And choosing you to be. Yeah.
I agree. I know that you are a new professional. You earned your LCSW quite recently. And so what has been your experience in group therapies thus far?
So I think maybe like you, but I certainly know other people like I really have wanted to run groups, and I've actually tried to run groups in all of my internship experiences and work experiences since graduating. And it's been hard to get involved in groups. I was doing my internships during COVID. And so the place that I worked at was a transitional housing agency that supported young mothers, and groups were a big part of what they did and a really big part of how they built community and helped not only like teach skills, but build the social structure to support these young moms. But I couldn't do any of that because of COVID, and there's just too many barriers to people participating online, and it didn't give the same kind of community support to people. So I didn't get to do it there. I tried to run groups when I was an intern, and then both when I was doing my supervised hours with a organization called Mainline Therapy Solutions. So it's a private practice that has a variety of clinicians, and they help me market the group and kind of think about, I was doing groups for parents with who were trying to manage children that had emotional dysregulation, but couldn't get enough people, just couldn't get a critical mass of parents who were able to come at the same time to do that. And I don't think that that's a situation that's unfamiliar to people who are interested in private practice spaces, wanting to run groups, seeing the value of it, but having trouble getting that off the ground.
Yeah, I've heard starting the group is one of the most challenging things. Finding the people willing to meet.
I would have said individuals feel safer to people. I actually think that group is less convenient, but I think that in some level it feels less safe, which is part of why it's so valuable. It does give us the opportunity to work on challenging social and inner outer dynamics that make us human. As far as how hard it is to get groups off the ground, I think this is one of the reasons that I was interested in being involved in the Philadelphia Area Group Psychotherapy Society. society because there are particular challenges that people who are interested in running groups or who are running groups encounter that people who are doing individual work exclusively don't encounter. And having, seasoned professionals to talk to about, to consult with about some of these things, like how to get a group started, is something that we've talked about as a board several times about how can we support young professionals. I think at this point, Brian's offering the consultation group for people who are actively running groups as a space to bring questions. I love that we offer those sorts of things.
Yeah, I hope he's still doing that when I'm running my own group.
Yeah.
Like this is an amazing resource.
Yeah, it is. And people are showing interest. That's wonderful.
What do you think most people get wrong about group therapy?
So if I zoom way out and I think, what does the average American person in this area think about when you think about group therapy? And I think it's probably in sort of a behavioral health setting or like an inpatient setting where people with some kind of similar struggle are meeting to share about that struggle or gain skills in a group. So that model doesn't sound voluntary. It doesn't sound uplifting. I think that there's a lot of opportunity that people don't realize in groups to work through some of the stuff that gets in the way of thriving. There's really this opportunity to look at the places that we struggle or where we are hard on ourselves or don't give ourselves credit. There's just so much inner growth available when we do it in a group space and we're getting feedback and kind of noticing ourselves in the context of others. I don't know if the average person is aware that there's that kind of group space available, that groups aren't just for people really struggling around particular issues. It's for all of us trying to learn how to be healthy versions of ourselves.
So you completed your MSS at Bryn Mawr in 2023, and then you joined the PAGPS board. During that time, what advice would you give students who are interested in group therapy but aren't sure where to begin?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think so many things in the professional space, it's talk to people, find people who are interested in what you're interested. Ideally, find people who have walked the path before you, which, again, brings us to professional organizations like PAGPS. So join the professional organizations. Often there's discounted rates for students. And so you can learn about what's going on in the field, what's going on locally, start to recognize names, attend events to kind of make connections. So, that is, I think, the primary advice that I would give.
You were first trained as a professional life coach before earning your MSS at Bryn Mawr. How has your understanding of change evolved as you've moved between coaching, social work, and some group therapy experience?
Well, I'm going to even start thinking about how I think about change from even a previous chapter. So I think I mentioned to you earlier, I have a master's in marine resource management or natural resource management. So my initial training was in ecosystems, and my initial master's thesis was around how do you get people to change their behaviors in order to reduce the spread of non-point source pollution and invasive species. What the research showed was social norms is the best way to get people who already have the information to actually care enough to change behaviors. And that was a big light bulb for me. How does change happen? We need to know what is right, but then how do we do the harder thing? One of the ways that we as people orient is through other people. And one of the things I think is really important is that we see ourselves as part of a system. We see ourselves within this bigger context. So that carries over from the sort of environmental or scientific chapter of my career through the life coaching, which was more coaching oriented than therapy oriented. It was the nuts and bolts of how change happened, how to motivate people, how to break things down into small pieces. And of course, therapy allows me to go much deeper, allows me to access different trainings compared to coaching. Coaching had a limit to where I could go with people.
In your coaching practice, you helped people transcend their personal stories. How does the group container do that work differently from a one-on-one coaching session?
I think group spaces do a great job in helping people transcend their personal experiences, because in groups we get to see what is true for humanity, what is normal, what sort of like patterns and themes emerge regardless of the content. The content of our individual experiences is different, but the patterns can feel really similar, which is very reassuring and gives us, a chance to learn from each other. So the group space does that.
All right, Gwen, just to round off my conversation with you today, I've been asking each of the board members the same question at the end, which is there something about you that you wish the board members knew about you?
Well, one of the things, something that I think a lot about as I'm sitting in the PAGPS spaces that I don't often say a lot about is the group dynamics show up inside of an individual as much as they show up when an individual sits in collective space. Most of my work is individual work, but I think that I bring a group lens, a systemic lens to the work that I do. I'm doing internal family systems. Heart's work is group work. It absolutely is group work. And people can feel the different roles that people in a group would play inside of themselves. It's like a translation that I'm making in my head. That'd be fun to talk more about with other members of the board.
So, Gwen, can you tell me more about your use of Quaker philosophy that you bring to your clinical work?
Yeah, and I'm never talking to any clients about Quakerism, but it is a lens that I carry with me and that I hold when I'm sitting with somebody. And especially when sitting in groups, when Quakers sit in silence, we're trying to listen to the God that is within me, but also the same God is within everything, all of us, everything living. And so I can access that sitting as an individual. But if I'm sitting in a group space and we're all holding that intention, there's sort of this magnified access or experience. I don't know what happens in a Quaker space, but I do bring the lens of there's something available to us when we sit in a group that is not available to us when we're sitting alone or even with a therapist. We know that the therapeutic relationship is a really important part of what makes change for people. And I would say that something about that is magnified in the group space.
Well, thank you so much, Gwen, for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure having this conversation with you. And I'm really looking forward to our PHPS board retreat next month.
Me too. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me and for doing these amazing interviews with all of the board members. Thank you, Harry.
It's my pleasure. Bye, Gwen.